Opinions are those of the hosts and guests and not necessarily those of the station or its management.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Our topics are large and small. When you really need to know, we are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right. Hey, folks. Good afternoon and welcome to the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, we're live streaming on the TuneIn application, right? So if you don't have it, download it, punch in WCRN. You have us 24/7. Hey, do me a favor, hit the like button on there, and you can take us anywhere. That's the best part of that. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Reminding you, folks, Wednesday and Friday, I don't have a producer in studio with me. I'm solo, so when you call in, you're not going to get that screening. You're just going to hear some clicks, and I'm going to invite you into the show. That's how that works on Wednesdays and Fridays, folks. 508-871-7000. We also have our text line, 617-297-8388, or email, text Joe on the radio. Funny how that works, right? Exactly what you're doing. Text Joe on the radio at gmail.com. It appears on the same screen in real time. And don't forget, we're live streaming on my social media platforms, Fitter. Yeah, that's a combination of Facebook and Twitter. Facebook and Twitter at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. YouTube channel, The Joe Mangiacotti Show, my LinkedIn page. And we're even on Twitch TV for some reason, at Joe M Show. All right, folks, of course, there is so much going on, but the first thing I wanted to open the floor up for discussion here is that this baby formula situation, which is indicative of so many other things here, folks. But we're talking, this is a serious issue, all right? This isn't Peloton bikes or chips for your car and so forth. Abbott Manufacturing Company in Michigan had a big problem. Now, this started a long time ago. It's not new. Going back months and months, in January, there was already the knowledge out there that the shelves were not at the normal capacities and that there was a problem going on. Then we had the Abbott Manufacturing, and why do we keep going back to Abbott, folks? They are the largest formula producer in the country. So that is a lot of baby formula. And when we're talking about formula, it's not just the stuff that, you do to replace breast milk. There are infants that have allergies to certain things. And so specialty formulas important for their survival. So this is an extremely serious issue, and there's a lot of facets to it. So the FDA gets notified, a whistleblower, someone says, hey, there's a problem. And 2 infants ended up dying because of bacteria. However, it's never been connected to Abbott. That's one of the problems that we have here, folks. They haven't traced it back, but 2 months it took FDA to go interview this whistleblower. Then it took 2 more months. In February, they closed them, and it's been 5 months of dragging their feet here about the whole issue, and no one has answers. And why hasn't the FDA been dragged into the Oval Office and asked what's going on there? How come they haven't responded to Abbott? But that's just one facet of this whole situation going on. Because obviously you need safety, you need cleanliness, you need safeguards in a baby formula factory. And even if they were open, if they said you got the green light, it takes them 2 weeks at minimum to even ramp up production. And they said it would even be the summer before that Abbott facility in Michigan could get them on the shelves. Now, only 25% of infants are breastfed. Doing the research for this discussion, that surprised me. I thought it would have been higher, but that means 75% of the infants in this country are dependent on formula, and that's a serious issue. Now, one of the other issues, right, that we have out there, folks, is people have learned that, believe it or not, the supply sheds at the facilities for the illegal immigrants, for the migrants coming over and detained, are fully stocked. So we do have formula headed to the border. And some might say, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But slow the roll there for a moment. If we, first of all, if we followed the law, enforced existing laws, we wouldn't have all these detainees. But we're going to put a pin in that for a second because that's not what we're talking about. But once you take someone into custody and they are detained and they're under your responsibility, now we're legally and ethically and morally responsible to feed them and house them, and especially the infants. So we have to send it there. So where's the Defense Protection Act, right? What's going on there? I'm telling you, I maintain that this would never have gotten this far if it was a Joe Biden situation, a Donald Trump was in there. I don't think it would get this far. And we would have seen him doing, remember the ventilator situation? When all of a sudden it came to the attention of that administration and that White House that, hey, we don't have as many ventilators as we need because in the early stages of COVID-19, people were being put on them to live. And technically, Trump never actually enacted the Defense Protection Act because he had conversations with the CEOs of these companies, and they willfully and willingly and eagerly jumped up and stepped up and produced more ventilators than we needed, to the point we were exporting them out to Europe. Remember that? Now we have a lot of problems when it comes to importing. A great deal of our that we import in baby, because we do import baby formula, a lot of it actually comes from Ireland. So that's interesting. But it's also a lot of the Europe factories over there can't import to the United States because, believe it or not, labeling issues. So don't you think we need to look at those and what's the problem with the labeling? Doesn't that sound like an easy fix? You know, you get a printer and a sticker and you kind of fix those labeling issues. I think it would be an easy fix. I mean, you call me crazy here, but the FDA tends to overregulate in this area. Now that Abbott facility, they were given 487 violations. And this is located at Sturgis, Michigan is where this Abbott plant is. And again, it's connected to somehow the whistleblower said that these two infants that died has to do with bacteria, but they have not been able in all these months to trace it back and connect it to that. I don't know why. Now, other than the FDA, the USDA is also involved with this, and they should be, because they're involved with 65% of all formula in the U.S. They go through this agency, right? And they're the ones who should have been stockpiling it, the USDA. And again, this didn't just happen. We saw this coming along. And again, plenty of formula in Europe, but we can't bring it in because of labeling. We need to take a very broad look at this, a broad brush to the situation, bring more formula in, fix the labeling issue, because 98% of the formula sold here is actually made here, by the way. And so it's not like it's a lion's share of the baby formula is produced in other countries. So we have the physical capacity, we have the manufacturing facilities, the factories, they're in the United States. But why aren't they being able to produce as much? This has to be looked at in the same dedication and ingenuity that President Trump put to the ventilators and to warp speed needs to be applied here. But I don't think we have the man for the job as part of the problem. 508-871-7000, enjoying the conversations. Again, let me jump to the phones. Again, no producers, so I'll just say, hey, welcome to the show. You're on. Who am I speaking with?
Yeah, it's Mark Worcester. How are you today?
Good, Mark. You look marvelous.
You look marvelous as well.
What are you thinking about this?
What I'm thinking about this is I'm gonna ask you a question, right? Ask the audience a question. It may sound like a stupid question at first, but when you think about it, it really isn't. So let's go back on the Wayback Machine. All right? Back to the year 1952. All right? So it's May 13th, 1952. How in the heck did the woman of that time manage to feed their infant children? And by the way, that was right at the height of the baby boom, right smack in the middle of
It
it.
was.
Babies all over the place.
Yeah,
How did
very
they
true.
feed those infant children?
Mostly breastfed at that time, and or breastfed their own, or also there were wet nurses and things like that at that time too.
They didn't make their own, huh?
Well, they made their own, but they made their own. They breastfed their own children, and wet nurses were. I don't think the wet nurses are very prevalent today. However, I had mentioned the other day there is this cottage industry of mothers who continue to breast pump and sell their breast milk. I mean, these are women who they're making some money, and because most women, at least this is I'm not a biologist, but most women, if you continue to breastfeed and continue to pump, you'll continue to produce the milk. So, and oftentimes they've got to be given medication to dry up and
So
so
they
forth.
didn't make their own out of ingredients that they either picked up at the grocery store or was in the refrigerator and just mixed it up in a pan, heated it up to the proper temperature, put it in a bottle, and then stuck it in the kid's mouth.
That's a
I
good
think
question
a lot
for
more
the
of that
audience.
went on.
Yeah.
I think a lot more of that went on than you think.
Probably.
In other words, they
I don't
made
know.
their own.
Yeah.
And the kids grew up and they were healthy and, life goes on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how they did it in
Yeah, have a good one.
1950. Thank you, Mark. I don't know how they were doing it in 1953, to tell you the truth. But today, what was it? Oh, Janice Yellen, right, was bringing up that issue and making a comment about that in the workforce. And Senator Rick there from Florida had an issue with that because he said, my mother was a single black woman and she worked very hard, and she did what she could, and he's happy to be here because she didn't abort him and so forth. But she was talking about the labor force, how that played a role as well. But we got to take a break here for the first segment. We'll come back and continue here on the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, 508-871-7000.
I had been unable to hear conversation.
I was blaming my family whispering.
I used to spend all the time saying, what?
If you or a loved one can identify with this, the hearing aid specialists Peter and Alex Lee at Professional Hearing on 33 Lyman Street in Westboro can correct or restore your hearing. Don't miss out on what you're not hearing. Call Peter and Alex Lee at 508-366-8686 or on the web at prohearinghealth.com.
The difference is amazing.
If you have a hearing loss and you don't have it corrected, you're losing out.
I would recommend Professional Hearing and Mr. Lee to anyone who experiences a hearing problem.
To find out if you have a hearing loss, call today, 508-366-8686, or go to prohearinghealth.com. Professional Hearing in Westboro. Schedule your free consultation now.
Metro West real estate market have you a little crazy? Call 508-733-6005 for a private consultation with award-honored realtors Gary Kelly and Sue Gordon of La Machia Realty. They'll help you make the right move. 508-733-6005 or movewithgary.com.
Dr. Satya Mitra has journeyed from a childhood of poverty and homelessness to a successful career as a financial advisor, motivational speaker, and community leader. Now inspired by his guru, he uses his experiences to positively affect the lives of underprivileged people. We strive to house our blindness, poverty, homelessness, female empowerment, and good citizenship initiatives within the Joy Guru Humanitarian Center. If you wish to contribute or know of deserving persons or initiatives that could use our assistance, please contact us at 508-641-8441.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show.
right, welcome back to the second segment of the Friday edition, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Hey, we're live streaming on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube pages, so many ways to listen, and you can peek into the studio on the live streaming as well. We're talking about baby formula, the shortage, the issue that's going on here in the country, and it's not something that snuck up on us. It was progressively happening, and it should never have gotten this far. Now, of course, coming out of the White House, what do we hear? Price gouging. This is the latest thing from the Biden administration on everything, right? All of the inflation, all of our problems, they have to do with the, mean robber baron meat producers. There's only 4 of them, and everything that's a problem or an issue, they deflect any responsibility or blame, and they're going to put it on to the industry themselves. In this case, with the baby formula, Jen Psaki and the administration, man, they've gone even further. They're blaming the parents now. So we have them saying we're going to crack down on price gouging. They're going to look at the Defense Production Act to increase the stock from the suppliers, import from the other countries. Like I said, a good deal of it actually that does come in, mostly from Ireland, and the rest of Europe has the labeling issues. But the House Democrats, their answer to this is launch an investigation into the largest manufacturers of formula. Meanwhile, the Republicans in Congress are saying this is actually on the FDA and POTUS. I tend to probably side on the side of Republicans here. What is up with the FDA? They can't get out of their own way. You're talking about life-sustaining formula to infants, and you're dragging your feet on this Abbott plant. Get to the bottom of it. So there's no plan. No plan. It's been long in the making. It actually started at the beginning of the pandemic, because that's when it was first noticed that the shelves were going a little more empty than normal, but it makes sense. Remember the toilet paper issues? If you have a pandemic, you're out of work or working from home, you're supposed to be locked up in your house, nobody's out, it's a ghost town in the middle of New York. You're going to buy the things you think because going to the store in those days was a big thing, if the store was even open. So parents did stock up and probably, and bought more than they probably would have. But that triggered the beginning all the way back to the pandemic, because parents were hoarding. But see, I think that's a strong word. They were overbuying more than they would have. They weren't buying cases upon cases and, storing it in the basement with 3 months of dried survival food or anything like that. But the shelves were getting a little more empty than they were. And the government wasn't paying attention to this. They weren't worried about this. I mean, in January, we gave out 400 million masks, but no stockpile of formula. The FDA overregulates in this area. Right? We talked about that. And Jen Psaki's blaming the parents. That's what she's saying is the issue today. 508-871-7000. Let's go back to the phones. Good afternoon. Who do I have? You're on.
Good afternoon, Joe.
Hey, Ken. How are we doing?
Well, this is a story right up my alley.
Okay. Oh, you
I
have
got
recent
2 grandchildren.
grandbabies, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
8 months and 6 months.
So are they on formula? Did your daughters, I don't know the structure, daughters or daughters-in-law, did they initially breastfeed?
They both have, yes.
Okay.
And one hasn't converted to formula and obviously won't be.
Mm.
And the other did.
Yeah.
And so I asked my son about their situation. And they had an allergy situation, so they had to get a special formula to fit
Right.
their daughter's
That's
situation.
another area, Ken, right? Because we've got a lot of infants that have, allergies, right? And there's all kinds of special formulas that are out there. So it's
Yep.
not just this one formula fits every infant type of thing, right?
Yeah, so I believe it's a foreign source that they're ordering online from a company in Vermont. And so they started that some months ago, but just within the past month, they have gotten notified they're taking on no new customers.
Okay.
And there's also like 2 layers of customers that they have. They have those who just order when they order, and then they have subscribers. Well,
And they're given priority, I assume, to the subscribers.
exactly.
Yeah.
So my son and daughter-in-law are subscribers, and they view this that they should be at the top of the heap. It's smart for the company to say, hey, we're not going to try to give partial deliveries and take on new customers. That's hurting too many people.
They'll destroy the company, actually, if they do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it makes sense what they did. And so this is all a learning lesson, folks.
Yes.
No matter what your situation is, you can't count on the Biden administration to be competent.
Well, Ken,
I
I think everybody's come to realize that you have to be more and more self-sufficient these days, and you can't count on the government really much of anything. Maybe national defense, and even that seems to be getting screwed up. But you have to be more resilient and reliant on yourself. Don't think the government's sweeping in. I mean, we saw that in Katrina. We've seen this in many examples. That I think people of a certain generation were always kind of taught, or just we thought, to rely on the government is actually will come in and take care of disasters and big situations. But Ken, in this situation, it wasn't even on their radar. They weren't paying attention to it.
But that's because they're incompetent. So let's take this back a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of people out there left-leaning, and they're so, the vaccine was a godsend. Well, hold them. Let's see now. Let's say Hillary Clinton had been president at the same time that the virus hit. Do people really think that the vaccine would have been ready to go in December 2020?
Oh, absolutely not. Oh, no way. She would have fallen right into it takes years and years. And
yeah, she would have been listening to Fauci.
She would absolutely. And we would have been under Hillary Clinton administration. I think we would have seen a martial law situation, to tell you the truth. She would have seized that opportunity for complete power and control. Kid me not.
So, hey, folks, wake up.
Yeah.
Just like the story yesterday where the Biden administration, nope, they're not going to have any new leases. Just when the prices are hitting the highest on gasoline, everything is hitting the fan. November can't come soon enough, Joe.
Yeah, but we still have to wait till January. I mean, they don't. It's still.
True.
But I'm worried about if there's the shellacking that's expected come November, and we're not talking 30, 40 seats. Say we talk 70 or 80.
You know what I
right?
said?
Well,
75 to 100.
What's to say that the damage they'll do on the way out the door? Now, in their minds, it's not damage, and maybe some of them are actually being spiteful, but most of them, I don't know what the number is now. I think we're well over 30 incumbents who are either not seeking or
moving.
Something else, so they don't lose the seat. But what are they going to try to get past between November and January? How much damage will be done, intentional or otherwise?
And Joe, the Senate's 50-50, and there's Joe Manchin who's going to put the kibosh on anything and try to do its wild.
Yeah. In a lot of scenarios, it makes Joe Manchin the most powerful man in the room.
At least for a few more months.
Yeah, for a lot of situations, it really does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, good luck to your grandbabies, and I'm glad that they're subscribers and worked it out. And then is it the daughter-in-law who's going to stay breastfeeding, or the daughter?
The daughter.
All right. So your daughter's just going to keep breastfeeding as long as it takes until they're weaned off anyway. So oh, good. Better that she knows now, and she didn't make the switch when this came to light. But some of the I'm going to just get into some of the numbers on this stuff. Anything else? I'll let you go. We're coming up to break anyway.
No, I'm just thankful and feel lucky given this mess that so many others have to deal with. That like two examples, we have solutions.
Yeah, yep, they are absolutely lucky. All right, Ken, thanks for the call, man.
Thank you.
All right, folks. So again, the thing about the access to it, right? We have just urgency in all 50 states, and the White House is not dealing with this. And the inflation issues on top of everything else, and the supply chain and their policies have a lot to do with it. But 8 states plus the District of Columbia are actually out of stock at 50% or more. That's incredible. Because in January, it was about an 18% running. So they knew it was coming because it was getting worse every month and nobody intervened. Now, nationwide, across the nation, it's at 43% of what should be stocked up. And, you know, you have some people stepping out. The Republican there, Rep. Stefanik from New York, she's calling out the administration and the policies. But, of course, like I said, Psaki's going to blame the parents because they're hoarding. Well, right now it's not called hoarding, it's called survival. It's called survival. You know, and the other thing is, and if we go back to when we were discussing the crime, and we'll discuss a little bit of crime today, but the smash and grabs in the CVS and Walgreens, right, that have been closing up all over the place because they're just getting shoplifted out of business. One of the most shoplifted items was actually baby formula because they would steal it for the neighborhood, right? They could turn a huge profit on the baby formula. So that was a lot of places, the Walgreens and CVS's had to lock that up. So you had to get a clerk and get it out. But if it was out on the shelf, that's one of the most popular items back a year and 2 years ago. They were getting shoplifted because of the demand, right? You can shoplift a lot of things, but the demand's never going to be as high as formulas or parents or moms and dads are willing to pay to feed their children. So this makes sense. So we've got that situation. So parents are just taking the opportunity when they can. Hey, we got to take a break here, and we'll come back for the second half of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on radio 830 WCRN. It's looking brighter for the afternoon than it was this morning. We had a lot of clouds and fog early today. Temperatures should slide straight through the 70s in the greater Worcester area with that developing partial sun. Now, if anybody's traveling to the coastline, you will find it a little cooler and a little bit cloudier out there. But overall, the warm-up continues with some hotter and more humid conditions developing into the weekend. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Spring is in the air, and it's full speed ahead for your Worcester Red Sox. And tickets are on sale now. Enjoy unique bobbleheads, Unibank fireworks, and magical moments for your family on the field. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888. No worries at Polar Park. We'll see you opening day, April 12th.
Hi, I'm Lee Gaudette from the Gaudette Insurance Agency, a third-generation company located in Whitensville, with branch locations in Grafton, Southborough, Westborough, and Shrewsbury. We are a full-service independent agency offering all aspects of insurance to businesses, industry, and individuals. Stop in and see us at any of our locations for a free assessment of your insurance needs. Also, listen to WCRN on Friday mornings at 9:30 for our radio show.
Think you're dealing with drug poisoning, chemical poisoning, food poisoning? Call the Poison Helpline first for fast, free advice from medical professionals. Call 1-800-222-1222 anytime, anywhere. Save the number, save a life. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show.
Welcome back to the second half of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, we're on the TuneIn app, streaming all the time, 24 hours a day, and it's great at night. The North Star music of your life there. I actually discovered that timer button on the TuneIn app. So I put that on, and I usually fall asleep to listening to that great music. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. Our text line is 617-297-8388. We're going to switch gears here a little bit, but let me go to the phones first. Joe and Millis. Hey, Joe. Welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Joe. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem. Anytime, man.
It is pure incompetence, but what I'd like to focus on a little bit is the $40 billion they're ready to spend in Ukraine.
Yeah, good point. And guess what? Senator Rand Paul, with a little parliamentary procedure, held it up in the Senate, and he makes a very valid point. If you take that $40 billion, Joe, and the money we've already given him, we basically have given Ukraine Russia's military budget. And what about home?
I'm sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying, what about home? We need a lot of stuff here, too.
Well, is it Ukraine going to, how much of that money is going to be squandered in one door and out the other? I mean, we had our PPP money stolen from underneath our eyes, and now we're going to send $40 billion to the Ukraine.
Yeah,
and
well, one of the
corruption?
things absolutely, we know Ukraine is pretty much corruption central, right? Because if we go back and we look at the Obama administration sending that board he created, which was made up of what? Nothing but hacks from his administration, Hillary's administration, or Hillary's staff and campaign staff. And they were supposed to oversee and teach them the right way and stop corruption. Yet it was loaded with corruption from Hunter Biden's situation across the board. And Rand Paul said that one of the things, a condition he wanted was an officer from general accounting. I forget what department, but he wanted a person specifically assigned to monitor every penny going out and where it's being paid, who it's being paid to, because you're right. We cut them a check, or we, God forbid, we send a flight over with $40 billion on pallets, like another administration did to another country. We don't want that to happen, right?
Well,
and I don't have a problem with us sending the old military equipment and putting a value on that, but sending cash becomes a problem that maybe we should be purchasing in their stead. But Joe, you're 100% right.
Look what the Biden look what Biden was able to do with $1 billion. He secured a hack job for his kid, got a prosecutor fired, and that was just with $1 billion. Imagine what his administration, the corruption can be done with 40 or 50.
And when you're talking about this kind of money, I'm going to apply what I said about all that money, COVID money that went out to the schools. When you have money of that scale, how much, when you talk about the money that falls between the in the sofa cushion type of thing, it's millions and millions of dollars. And every couple of years, right? The usually the Chicago school administrator gets charged on, and some embezzlement. The pool was put in or something. Money. When we talk about this amount of money, Joe, some of it's always going south.
How about the stimulus checks, Joe? How long did it take them after they gave us the stimulus checks? How long did it take the Biden administration to suck it back out of us?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. And look at the PPP, right? The payroll protection plan. We're talking about some ridiculous amount of money, right? $1 billion or half of it, just a ridiculous amount of money scammed. And most of it done by people outside the country. They adopted identities, and they were able to formulate these phony companies. Where was the checks and balance? And I understand the argument. Well, we needed to get the thought was get the money out there, and we can investigate later. I'm sorry. When you're talking about billions of dollars ending up to go into foreign scam artists or just idiots in this country, that's a problem. It's so disrespectful to the taxpayer,
Right,
Joe.
and then they make us beg for crumbs like the gas tax and, you know, lowering a couple pennies here and there. It's crumbs, Joe. You know, they're reaping in millions and they're feeding us crumbs. It's just disgusting what the war on the American people, the Biden administration has done. You think the war in Ukraine is bad? Look at the one he's waging against us.
You know, on that note, I got to say, I'm a little dumbfounded when in the same breath I'm told, hey, Joe, we have a $5 billion surplus in because revenues are really high in Massachusetts. And we've got, you know, also this money that came from the feds, $5 billion surplus. Oh, 24 cents on the gas tax? No, we're not going to suspend
What did
that.
they give? They gave themselves thousands of dollars in raises, Joe. And,
yeah.
And we're sitting back worrying about feeding our kids and, you know, getting to work and watching the gas prices and the oil prices go up. You know, this area dodged a bullet in a way, having the oil crisis, home heating oil, hit when, you know, our weather was changing.
Yeah. But what's going to happen? What is going to happen come this fall when you have to put that in the, you know, you got to put the oil in the tank because you got to. We're New England. And what's going to happen is people aren't going to be able to keep up and afford. And all of a sudden, you know, what are we going to do when pipes are bursting all over the place because they can't afford to warm the house or keep it warm enough to stop
The new
that?
slogan, Joe, is going to be to heat or eat.
Yeah.
Take your pick. Take your pick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I was going to bring this up later in the show, but let me do it now because you kind of touched on this. So meanwhile, while taxpayers are footing the bill for all of this, you know, and by the way, inflation is just really another form of tax. So the House has decided to foot the bill to pay for Peloton membership to the Capitol Hill staff. So this is going to, as of May 18th, 12,000 Capitol, you know, workers and legislators are going to get a Peloton membership to the tune of $480,000 per month. You and I are paying that. Why would we? What the heck is that we're paying Peloton memberships for the Capitol?
Didn't Jen Psaki say they didn't care about deliveries of?
Yeah, remember that's when she was trying to downplay the supply chain issue, and she says, "Oh, what? You're upset? You're not going to get your Peloton bike?" That's why I said she, you know, she was probably the most competent person in the Biden administration.
That's scary.
You know, and because of what she's out, it's the last day today, so we'll see you later, Jen. And she's going to MSNBC, and she can, you know, do her disinformation and her lying there, but. Why are taxpayers expected to pay $400? It's almost $500,000 a month for membership to 12,000 Capitol employees.
I can answer that question,
asinine.
Joe. Lobbyists. They got a lobbyist in there, and they bought off a couple of people in the government, and that's why that might be just the beginning.
Yeah.
That could be a second stimulus for them. I'm sure they got a stimulus check from the payroll protection place.
See, I don't think that legislators should benefit from from anything, to finish my sentence, like the student loan thing, right? No, that's me. I interrupted my own sentence. The student loan thing, right? These Omar and these people who have these student loans. I said this one time before, and I'll say it again. How about somebody present to her, you know what? We'll do student loan relief, except you're exempt because you're a member of Congress. It's conflict of interest. You can't vote on it for yourself. So everybody gets it but you. How enthusiastic do you think she'd be if she wasn't going to benefit?
Not very. I'll tell you who is enthusiastic. These colleges that have been overcharging our kids for $500 to $700 for a book, or, you know, incredible amount of wasted bureaucracy.
Yep.
You know, for every one professor, you got three people sitting in an office looking at each other. You know, this adjunct.
You got that, Joe, because the cost of college and universities has gone up bigger than anything else, right? At a rate higher than anything else. Nobody questions it. Nobody talks about it. and it's ridiculous. And they're encouraging these young adults to pursue these degrees, and there should be some kind of expectation or some kind of backup on this. I mean, if you're not employable in your degree, and
you got the wrong degree.
Yeah, and you signed on the line. Taking out a student loan, guys, it's a contract. It's an agreement.
Joe, many of those, some of those student loans didn't go towards education. They went towards spring break and airline tickets and pizza and nights out. It didn't all, they weren't obligated to pay off their college. They could do some, privately, they could do what they wanted to do with some of that money.
100%. Joe, 100%. There should be accountability in these universities for the amount of money that they're charging, the degrees that they're issuing. And I'm sorry, folks, if you decide that's what you want to do and you take money and you sign on a dotted line, that's a contract. That's an agreement. Nobody else is responsible for that. And I always say on that issue, man, what do you say to the family, right, who paid it as they went? They sacrificed. Maybe they didn't buy a bigger home. They didn't go on family vacation. They kept the car longer. You see what I'm saying? They did all these sacrifices so that their kids left their 4 years or maybe 8 years, whatever it is. They got their degrees and so forth, either debt-free or close to it. And what are you going to say? And there was a clip of a guy asking Elizabeth Warren that, and he said, am I going to get my money back? And she said, no, of course not. That's the blatant inequity of this is out there, and you're expecting the truck drivers and the welders and the plumbers and people working at factory jobs and retail jobs. They're supposed to foot the bill for your kids' 4 years of semi-education and partying. I don't think so. It's a bad
not
move.
only is it, it's also backwards on the immigration, where people are doing it right, taking the 5 or 6 years to learn the language, learn the laws, have a skill so that they can come in this country, hit the ground running.
100%.
Now they're the suckers. You want to talk about suckers?
Joe, I got to stop you. I'm
Thanks,
sorry. We're against the clock. These days here, the computer runs it and breaks it. There's no what we used to call floating breaks in the business. So the computer is going to jump in and do it, and I don't have control over it, folks. 508-871-7000 and join the conversation. Back on the other side for the final segment.
To celebrate beautiful weather than cruising the great outdoors. Hi, I'm Paul Kowalas, president of Linders. We offer the area's largest selection of late model, certified pre-owned vehicles, most still under factory warranty.
Like a 2019 Infiniti QX50 Pure with only 15,000 miles for just $37,995.
Celebrate the arrival of spring with a quality pre-owned vehicle from Linders on Granite Street in Worcester. Linders.com.
Linders, the intelligent alternative.
93% of adults listen to the radio each week. Of those exposed to radio ads, over half made a purchase. Despite how often the media reports on newer forms of advertising, it is, in fact, free broadcast radio that most effectively reaches and truly influences customers. Radio allows you to place your company's message directly to the radio audience for 30 or 60 seconds, and it's a gold mine. Radio advertisements are more memorable compared to written and visual ads. It's just this simple. Sound is stored more effectively inside memories. Reach over 90% of this market's potential customers with your radio message on WCRN Full Service Radio. Call station manager Chris Thompson at 508-870-5803, extension 222, or visit WCRNradio.com.
You just may have the best podcast anywhere.
Blah, 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 blah.
But who knows it exists? Hello? Get your podcast to broadcast on radio. Create a podcast. Improve your podcast sound with professional production and editing. Record your podcast in a real radio studio. Visit podcasttobroadcast.org today. Get your podcast on the radio with podcasttobroadcast.org.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show.
All right, folks, welcome back for the fourth and final segment of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. I am Joe Mangiacotti, and the number is 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, 508-871-7000. I do want to get into the crime situation in the country, as well as the Washington Post bringing back Pinocchio for Biden when he's talking about, well, you know what he's talking about, and it's full of it. But before, and also Elon Musk is back in the news. But before we do that, let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. You're on. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Who do I have here?
Hi, Joe. This is Bob from Worcester. How you doing?
Good, Bob. What's happening and what's on your mind, man?
Been listening to you, Peter Blute, Jerry Doherty, Harry. I can't think of his last name.
Berkowitz?
All you guys are excellent.
Oh,
the question I want to ask you, Joe, is if somebody asked you what made America the greatest country in the world, how would you answer it?
Okay. And a short answer would be the Constitution, would be my short answer. We're the only country that has the Constitution that we have. It was built or derived from a society that lived under a tyrant, and they knew what tyranny was. They knew what it was like to be imprisoned without any kind of recourse or justice. They knew what it was like to have the press and controlled by the state. They knew that being disarmed was the biggest way to enslavement, right? So when you get down to it, what makes America great? It would be the United States Constitution and, of course, the Bill of Rights that came with it. It would be the short answer.
Okay. Let's go back just a little further. I trust you guys. You're all smarter than me, but I want to know if I can hear it from somebody else. What was the principle that the Constitution was based upon?
Magna Carta.
And what was the principle of the Magna Carta?
What year was that? 1290? What year did they do the Magna Carta? It's old, right?
Right.
Do you remember what year? What year was that?
It was somewhere around the 1200s, I believe.
Yeah. It was the same thing. I mean, for the same principle, it was you got to remember what it was like to live in those times, right? What the life expectancy was. You were born into really the class you were born into. That was your life, right? You weren't born a peasant and hey, you could be the king. It didn't work that way. You were born and pretty much everybody did what the father did, right? It used to be the number one son got the family business, right? The second son always went into the military. The third son, clergy. And the eldest would take on. So even if you look at surnames, Bob, right? Thatcher, what do you think your father, your great your ancestors did, right? Smith, that means your ancestors were blacksmiths or some kind of a smith, whether they were shoeing horses or working with iron. So that was what it was. And even if you look at, the clans in those days, if you were born in, that's where O'Reilly, it means of the O'Reilly, of that clan, son of, Robert, son of Jake. So in those days, it was not a wonderful life if you weren't born a nobleman. So that was the principle of trying to strive for better humankind, better dignity in life. At least that's my understanding of it, Bob.
Okay, let's see if we can connect some more of the dots. Magna Carta, United States Constitution, where does the United States come from?
Do you mean literally like the colonies or ideologically, where does it come from? What do you mean by the question? Did I lose you, Bob?
Bless America.
Oh, I lost you there for a second, Bob. Say that again.
Where do we get songs like "God Bless America,"
Irving Berlin,
"My Country 'Tis of Thee," and you've got the Bible in the schools of Massachusetts since 1642.
Yeah.
And you've got prayer. You see where I'm going with
I
it?
do. I see where you're going. That we're one nation under God, and we're based on Judeo-Christian beliefs, and again, we go all the way back to the Mayflower what were they doing? They were seeking, running from religious persecution. They were coming to the New World to be free to practice their religion. Is that where you're headed with this?
Well, that's where I'm heading, Joe. But
Yeah.
I want to get specific. Did those principles make us the greatest nation in the world? The fact that we acknowledged God,
Yeah.
we feared Him, we reverenced Him, and we submitted to His word. I mean, every courtroom in the United
Yeah.
States, before you testify, put your hand on the Bible. Before you take the oath of office, put your hand on the Bible. We're acknowledging God.
Yes. Yes. As a matter of fact, it's on our money. It's the Constitution talks about these inalienable rights that we have them and they can't be taken away, and in that they're given to us by God, not men and not government. And the fact that we allowed this, and we do have separation, right, of religion and state, but what that means, and I think sometimes people warp it a little bit, Bob, is it means there'll be no official state religion. And the state can't tell you that if you're in England and you got the Church of England, right? That's because the king didn't want to answer to the Pope, type of thing. So it just says that the state can't impose one religion on you. You can practice any religion you want, but the basic principle was there on the fact that there was a God, whatever your God was, and it helped, I think, preserve a certain behavior in society. And maybe the lack of God today in our schools and in our lives might have something to do with the crime rate in what's happening out there. And in what we've seen in the last few decades, Bob, right? The atheists have brought suits to remove everything from the Pledge of Allegiance to prayer time, to either even referencing God or a God in the schoolroom. And maybe that plays a role in where we are today, because it certainly was a huge part of everyday life back in the day, right? And the formation. I mean, we have a law in Massachusetts, right? We have what they call the old blue laws. And there was I don't know if they took it off yet, but at one point we had a law in the books here in the state that said you had to carry a long-barreled gun to church on Sunday. And of course, this was a time where you could encounter wild animals between your home and the church at any given time. But everybody went to church back in the day, right? And everybody observed the Sabbath, and whether you were Jewish and you had Friday, and it happened. But that's like all but disappearing, isn't it?
I think you hit the nail right on the head, Joe. If you go back, and of course the nail on the head was the connection between, there is no acknowledgement of the Lord at all today in our country, which was founded upon Him. And if you go back, anybody can do the research. 1962 was the year that we finally got rid of prayer, the Bible, and the Ten Commandments from our institutions, public education, government, etc. And if you look at the stats for crime, for education, it's so obvious. SAT scores nosedive. Crime went up like 500%. And that's when you had no two-parent homes.
Yeah.
Everybody was getting divorced.
Yeah.
Everybody was getting abortions. And the whole country started to take a nosedive towards self-independence based upon every man did what was right in his own eyes.
Yeah. And I think that and you mentioned it was the nucleus family, right? When we went to the single parent homes, that's where a lot of problems started to happen. And it's not, I'm almost simplifying it, folks. It's not just that simple, but it ties into the whole bigger picture of what was going on society wise, what was going on in our schools. And, obviously we have the Roe versus Wade decision in 1973 that's coming into it. And a lot argue, Bob, that that decision in 1973 was a lot more political than it was based on constitutional law. And that's what Alito's leaked draft is saying. And for those that didn't take the time to read it and they're losing their freaking minds over it, it doesn't outlaw abortion. It just says we're going to say we're overstepping as the Supreme Court. We're going to give it back to the states and let the people of those states decide how they're going to handle it. That's all that decision's saying. But we've seen a huge nosedive in abortion since contraceptives started to advanced, right? They became more readily available over the counter. They got better and better, and we've seen abortion rate dive because of that. But yes, absolutely, I think there's that correlation between the absence of God in that structure and what happened in society. I don't know if you could argue against that, really.
Well, if you look at men like Tony Dungy, the former head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, won the Super Bowl. He's a black man by color, and he's a Christian. He has a living, vocal, persuasive testimony of the Lord Jesus Christ in his life. Yeah. And all he tried to do was set up a program called All Pro Dads.
Oh, yeah.
And because he's black, he's got a connection with the black community, especially, more than we could have. And he's identifying households that need a dad in that household. And Ron DeSantis is giving him funds to do just that thing. He's getting results. And what does the media do? They criticize him for the statistics that he gives. So what does he say? I'm using the same stats that Obama used in 2012. What are you saying about him?
Yep. Oh, have you noticed though? So whenever a black man or black woman is conservative or not part of the hive mentality, not following that democratic leftist verbiage and program, they vilify them, right? They call them nasty names. And the View the other day, you had that Sunny woman say to the black conservative woman, basically, you're an oxymoron. I don't get it. Bob, thank you for the call, but we're seconds away from the end of the show. Like I said, computer's got to go. The show's got to end. I appreciate the call tremendously, though. Thank you. Call
Thank
again.
you, Joe, very much.
All right, folks. That is going to wrap up the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. I'll be back Sunday morning, 6 a.m. for the Sunday morning talk block with Peter Blute and Mike Wade. Hey, enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Joe out.
This is Full Service Radio, AM 830, WCRN, Worcester, Metro West.